Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. It's a guy Great here again, and today we're going to continue from where we left off. So in our last episode, we worked on the tag menu, and when we click on the third row here, we get to see all the tags available. And this was where we left off in the last episode. So going back to our Trello board, we are going to be working on the next task, which is integrating the single blog page. So we'll drag this to doing. So this features integrating both the single blog page as well as the comment lists. So that's what we'll be working with. And the whole idea of the single blog page is such that when we click on continue reading, we should be able to access the single blog page. So the first thing I believe we need to do is to assign the link to the continue reading, because as of now, if we click, nothing happens. So let's go back to our code and do this. So we come back into our app, our page, and technically we don't really need to focus on the page here because we have components that does this. And the two components for this include the block card as well as the special card. So let's start with the block card. So here's the block card and here is the link we want to work with. And all we have to do here is just change this to a string representation and have a slash here. Then we can specify the slug here, and we can have this as blog.slug. And that's all we have to do in regards to the block card. The same thing for the special card. So let's just copy what we have here. Alright, so doing those two now should update things. So let's go back to our browser and test. So when we click on the continue reading, it takes us to the single blog page. And what we want to focus on is getting the content for this as well as the comments associated with the blog posts, okay? And from the look of things, I think it would make sense to have a back arrow, but I think those would be part of our finishing touches, so let's not bother about that now. So for now, we can go back by clicking here and we'll go back. So again, we can click here and we'll get to this page. So that's the first part, and the second part is getting our content from the backend server. So currently I have my server running, as you can see. So again, we can just make use of the same request we've been using so far. So let's go back to our code. So within the special blog, we have this request and we can just copy it. And we'll come back to the single component itself, which is within here. So page. So here is it. However, before we actually deal with the request itself, we need to get access to the slug here. So take note, the name we are looking for is the slug. And we can get this within the props. So we can just specify props here of any. And the idea here is that since this is a dynamic path, it always has to be fulfilled before we can access this page. So the slug information will always exist. So here we can access the slug by having it as const. So we access the slug from props.params. And in case you have query params, then you can use search params for that. So in here, we are going to have our slug here. And this slug name has to match with the dynamic route name itself. So that's done. So the next thing we want to do is to make the request itself. So again, this would turn into an async function. Then we get data. And this is going to be iBlog, one of it. Then finally, this is going to be the blog URL, then extending the slug to it. So let's define that. So here's the blog URL. And remember, our lookup field is the slug. So all we have to specify here is the slug. And this is going to return our slug to us. So here we can call this the blog content. So let's take a look at our structure. So here's the blog content. It's going to have every information as our iBlog. And I think we are good to go on that. So this seems to be an error. Yeah, so there's a possibility of having this as undefined. Yeah, so this is a possible thing. So for instance, let's say we are using a slug for blog that does not exist again, then we want to be able to handle that situation. So we can make a check that if block content does not exist, so if not block content, or return that the block we are trying to access no longer exists. Alright, so this is just a temporary note, so we can update that later on, but that's the whole idea. So yeah, that's the fix for that, and as you can see, there is no longer an error here. And for the comment section, we can just push our information here. So since we have access to the slug, we can send the slug here. Alright, so let's go back to our browser and see what update we have. Okay, looks like I didn't format this well enough. We are getting a lot of /r and so on. So that's just something with the formatting, and we can always fix that on later on. So another update I want to make to the single blog page is to show the cover if it exists. So remember, our definition for the cover is that it can exist or not. So in case where it exists, then we can just show it, and if it doesn't, we can ignore it. So let's implement that. So this is the single block content, and this is the top section. So at this point before the title, we can check if the cover exists. So we can just say an and for this. So I'll give this a class name of cover, and I'll be styling most of it from the CSS side. So here I can specify a style of background image. So URL, then the cover. Alright, so that's all we need to do in regards to the cover, and nothing would happen at the moment until we style it. And the style for this should be rather straightforward. So within the single content, we are going to look at that. So come back to our style. So the single content, I think this is it. So here's the top and others. So here we want to target the cover. So the width is going to be 100%. And the height, I think I'll work with 300 pixels. Then background size, I'll give it cover. Then background repeat, no repeat. Then background position, center. Alright, so that's all I need to do in regards to my cover, and I think things should be up and running. Let's check again. Alright, so this looks good. So we have everything flowing out the way we want it. And with this, I think we are done with the single block content itself, and our focus now would be on the comment. And for the comment, I want this to be loaded from the client side. And the reason for that is when we load content from the server, everything has to load before the page renders. And probably maybe the single block content is very important, so we can see that immediately the page renders. However, I don't think the comment is as important, so it shouldn't delay the page from loading. So if we have a fast network, probably that might not be an issue. However, if the network is slow, then it's going to be an issue. So we'll find out that the page will just be blank for a while before it actually loads up. So as a result of that, we are going to be loading the comments from the client side. And to make it more aesthetically pleasing, I've decided to use a component, which is a loader component. So the React loading skeleton, and this is going to add this effect to our loading. So when we are loading the comments, it's going to show this so that at least the user is pleased with that. So let's install this package. So back here, we can close our server for now. And we install the package. Alright, so that's done. We can start the server once again. Yeah, we will come back to the style because we need to probably adjust some styling in regards to the package, but that's later on. So let's go back to our single page, and here's the comment section. We've sent the slug. We're going to make use of that later on. So let's come into the blog comments. So the difference between a server loading and a client loading is just the use effect. So anything you load within a use effect is going to be on the client, and anything you load within your direct components is going to be from the server. So that's just the difference there. So as a result of this, we probably need a state to manage our comments. So use state, Then here we can have an array of I comments, and we also need to import the use state rather. So by default, it's going to be an empty array like that. Then next we can define a function to get the comments. Then finally we can have a use effect to get the comments. Then we can call the get comments from here. Then again we can come back to our page and copy the request from here. So this is going to be comments, and this is going to be an array of I comments. Also we need to get data. Then we need to get the comment URL. Let's get to that. So this is the comment URL, and here is our path here. However, it looks like I'm missing something, and probably we'll get to that later on. So it looks like we are missing what we are meant to use to get the comment for a particular blog. And we'll get to that later on. But for now, let's just put this and have the slug here. We're going to have the structure just the way we want it. So we need this to be our empty array. Then we need to have another state for loading states. So by default, this is going to be true. So by default, it's loading. So once we set our comment, so set comments here, then we can set loading as well. Then finally, we can look through our comments. So this is going to be comments.map. Then we have this. However, this is now going to be the comment data. And we won't be needing this any longer. Okay, this is the structure. We are not certain if we are getting the right thing yet. Probably we'll do that in this episode or the next, but yeah, let's just have the structure for now. So we are not using the loading yet, and that's why we installed the React skeleton. So let's check how it's being used. So if we come back here, so this is all we have to do. We get the CSS, we get the skeleton component, and we use it just like this. So I'll copy this, come back to my comments page, and paste it here. So generally, if you are going to use your skeleton in other parts of your project, you probably want to paste this in your general layout. But since this is the only place we'll be using the skeleton, then I think it makes sense to just have it within here. So this is the top section, we won't bother about that. However, here we can make a check. So if it's loading, then we want to have a loading. So div class name, I'll call this skLoading. Else we want to show the comments. So for this, we won't need this any longer. We only need the open and close brace. Then we can format that. So within our loader, I will just copy from the skeleton side. So I'll copy this to information. Paste it here. I can remove the comments. I'll change this to 2, and I'll give this a class name of title. Alright, so that's my structure for the skeleton, and let's take a look at it before we do any styling. Yeah, so it's complaining that this only works in a client component, and that's exactly what we are doing. So all we need to do here is to mark this as a client component. So we have this as use clients. Okay, that's all we need to do, and we are good. So as you can see, we add our loading sign. However, it went through after making its request to get comments, but it doesn't look like it got any comments. So yeah, that's something to note. So just to have enough time to see how the loading looks, we can ignore this for now. So we can ignore this set loading false, and let's take a look again. So this is what it looks like, and I want to give this a little bit of styling just so that it looks more cool. So I'll target the skLoading, come back to my style, come here. So I want to target the title. I'll give this a height of 25 pixels. Then I'll give it a margin bottom of 10 pixels. And I think that should make it look more interesting. Okay, this is what it looks like now, and I think that's much more or less like it. So let's come back to here, our comments. So in a situation where the comment length is less than 1, then there is no comment, and we can have a note for that. So we can have one more check. So comments dot length is less than 1. Then we'll do this as show what we need to see. So let's have our notes here. So here I think I have one not found at some point. So let's just have this here. So also we'll probably make some clean outs there. So we can have no comments found. Okay, format and clean it up. So let's take a look at what we have now. Oh, okay. We have not set it to close it after loading. So let's ignore this again, or rather, let's remove the comments. And let's see. Alright, no comments found. And that's more or less like it. We are not certain how the comment works. So let's take note of this blog. Or let's just go back to our home page. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Let's go back to our browser. Let's locate that blog. So this is blog ID number 4. And we can come back to our comments. Comment URL, blog ID number 4. Alright, so now we have a comment for this blog. And let's see if it comes here. So let's refresh. Alright, so no comment found. So we've not figured out how to actually make requests to get the comment. And so that we won't bore ourselves with any further thing, I would round up for today here. And we'll focus on getting that to work in the next episode. So see you in the next episode. If you enjoyed it, kindly leave a thumbs up. Bye and see you in the next one.